Aloha kako. I'm Helen Wong Smith, the archivist for University Records here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. We welcome you to the joint conference of the International Association of Sound and Audio Visual Archives and Southeast Asian Pacific Audiovisual Archive Association. And we welcome you with this welcoming oli. Mahalo, son. I am happy to introduce Wendy E. Hensel, a champion for inclusivity and innovation in higher education, is deeply engaged in using analytics and artificial intelligence to improve student outcomes, modernize curricula, and increase university efficiencies, new context. Hensel began her presidency at the University of Hawaii January 1st, 2025. Welcome. And she has served as Executive Vice Chancellor and University Provost at the City University of New York, where she improved student success, expanded virtual degree programs, and aligned academic offerings with workforce demands. With over 2 decades at Georgia State University as Dean of the College of Law and Provost, Hensel is a noted legal scholar in disability law, policy, and ethics. Passionate about advancing opportunities for individuals with disabilities, she serves on the board of Integrate, which promotes inclusive employment for professionals with autism. Hensel earned a bachelor's degree in American Public Affairs from Michigan State University as a Harry S. Truman Scholar and a degree cum laude from Harvard Law School. Please join me in welcoming President Hensel.
Aloha. Let's try it again.
Aloha.
Yes, those of you not from Hawaii must know that you have to respond in the same way as we greet you. So let's try again. Aloha. Excellent, excellent job. Very nice to see all of you. It's really an honor to be here today at the 56th International Association of Sound and Audiovisual Archives Conference. And it is really wonderful that UH Manoa can serve as your host today for this important gathering, which I understand is the first time that we've hosted you here in Hawaii. Your theme, A Loss of Place, Preserving Climate Narratives, Cultural Identity, and Marginalized Voices Through Audiovisual Media, could not be more timely or meaningful. And I think in that title is probably 5 or 6 words that we're not supposed to say these days, so it gives you some sense of the importance of saying them. In Hawaii and across the Pacific, we know that there are significant challenges with climate change, the fight for cultural identity, and amplifying voices that too often go unheard. The work that you do in preserving those voices, protecting and sharing these stories ensures that memory endures and that wisdom is not lost. And I want to acknowledge that no doubt the journey here has not been simple. In today's global climate, travel restrictions, denied visas, border challenges have kept some of our colleagues from being here in person. And sometimes it's just not smiled upon to do this type of work. And so we understand that some have chosen to participate virtually because of the uncertainty of international travel. So please know that if you are here virtually, that you are missed in person. And those of you who are here in the audience today, deepest gratitude from the university for your perseverance and commitment to global scholarship. Your presence here and our fellowship makes this gathering possible, and it's an important statement about the importance of the work that we do here. So this week's program, I took a look, truly remarkable, with spoken papers, workshops, panel discussions, keynotes, tours, and social gatherings. If you are lucky enough to be in Hawaii, you're lucky enough, right? Make sure that you enjoy where you are this week. But you've created not just an academic conference, but really a vibrant community. The hybrid format will ensure that our knowledge shared here will continue to resonate long after the final session ends. Here at the University of Hawaii, whatever the challenges, we remain deeply committed to these type of collaborations, even in challenging times, and believe that when scholars, archivists, and practitioners come together, we continue to expand the borders of knowledge and wisdom, and importantly, strengthen the bonds and inspire action, both for ourselves and for future generations. For us, these conversations are also profoundly local. As Hawaii's only public university system, we embrace our kuleana, our responsibility, to be a Native Hawaiian place of learning and indigenous serving institution, unapologetically. We know the archives are not just collections of documents or recordings, they're vessels of our memory, our collective knowledge, and they carry the voices of our ancestors, the stories of our communities, and knowledge that continues to guide us forward today. Particularly in the Pacific, where oral traditions, song, and visual memory are so central, audiovisual archives are a lifeline to our cultural survival. And that's why we are so proud and I think uniquely situated to host this conference. We want to ensure that the stories of Hawaii and the Pacific, of resilience, of adaptation, of cultural strength, are part of the global discourse on preservation. And importantly, that our students, our faculty, and our communities are enriched by that knowledge and continue to be proud of where we come from every corner of the world. Let me also recognize quickly the role of community engagement in this work. Preserving cultural memory is not just the responsibility of us, of activists and archivists. It's a shared endeavor. Families, elders, educators, local communities, we all contribute to this history and this inspired action, making preservation more powerful, more authentic, and more inclusive, which is important at this particular moment. So today, I ask you to enjoy these coming days with both scholarly rigor and open hearts. Listen deeply, share generously, and remember that the work that we do together truly has reverberations far beyond the walls in which we share space. It helps ensure that future generations are inspired and inherit not just knowledge, but their identity, hope, and meaning at a time that desperately needs hope, identity, and meaning. So mahalo for being here and for your commitment to preserving the world's cultural memory. We truly are honored that you're here today and look forward and hope you make connections today with each other and with this university that will last long beyond this gathering. So welcome to Hawaii, best wishes, and unfortunately, I would love to stay with you today, but I'll be heading out. I hope you enjoy yourselves while you're here. Mahalo.
Mahalo, President Hensel. We'll see you around campus. I'm happy to introduce our Associate University Librarian of Hamilton Library here at the University of Hawaii, Vicki Leben.
Welcome. University Librarian Clem Guthrow sends his greetings. He's in St. Louis right now at a meeting. So I was second pick. Don't feel sorry for me, though. I get really nervous about these kinds of events. David assured me, or when he asked me, I kind of sighed. And then he said, oh, no, it's for a bunch of audiovisual folks. And I said, oh, those folks are nice. I can totally do this. So my undergraduate degree was in film and video. I spent a lot of late evenings splicing film together, working with VHS, which I know talking about film and VHS is like a librarian talking about filing cards in a card catalog, which I've also done. When I worked on my master's degree in library and information science, I did an internship at the University of Michigan Film and Video Library. And then recently, I helped with the logistics and construction of building spaces as we moved our audiovisual collection from another building into our main library. So this is my way of telling you all that I understand the challenge, the fun, and the importance of your work. While you're here in Hawaii, in addition to attending the conference, I hope you get to enjoy Hawaii. I believe David shared my list of VIX picks with you. So that's been used. You're the fourth event it's been used with, so it's been tested. None of the restaurants have given me anything for endorsing them, so you know it's legit, though I would like a meal or something, though I wouldn't accept it. President Hensel's not here, so you know that wouldn't be ethical. Anyhow, on behalf of Hamilton Library, I hope your conference and your experience here in Hawaii is educational and magical. Thanks.
There you go. Mahalo. And of course, as his wont, our keynote has yet to arrive. This is DeSoto, but let me share with you, I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction. I want to invite all of you, before we get to our keynote, I want to invite all of you to join us. You have a fabulous, thank you to David Roundtree and our planning committee. You have fabulous site visits. How many of you went to another site yesterday? Okay, so we have to get more of you off the campus. It's a beautiful campus, I think you'll agree, but we have to get more of you off the campus and so that you can explore other areas of the island. Also, I highly encourage you, while you're here, to visit one of the neighbor islands. We call it the neighbor islands. And I'll put in a special plug for the Big Island, which has every environmental zone except tundra. So please feel free, take an extra day or two and go on over there. And also to welcome you, we have the opening reception tonight right here on campus. I encourage you to attend that, but I especially encourage you, now that we don't have to worry about a hurricane, to join us on Thursday night at the Waikiki Aquarium for our closing dinner. You cannot get a better location than that. You will be on the ocean, right on the shoreline. You will have Hawaiian entertainment and a special buffet that includes the fresh catch of the day, and I made sure there were Hawaiian desserts as well. So please go down to the registration desk and make sure you sign up for that. I don't know if it'll be a full moon, but it'll be a night under the stars. David, do you want me to say anything else, or you want to say anything else while we wait for our keynote?
Aloha, everyone. I figured we'd just take care of some housekeeping stuff while we're waiting as well. So as Helen mentioned, the reception tonight will begin at 5 o'clock. So I think all the programming here will be done at 4:30. So you'll have a half an hour to casually, leisurely make your way over. We'll have people directing you, but it's very easy, just straight onto campus here. Also, there will be buses leaving tonight as well. So if you're in Waikiki and need a ride home, there will be buses starting at 6 o'clock, again at 7 o'clock, and then we'll just cycle through until everybody who needs a ride has one. So I just want to let you know that that's the case as well. So the reception will be from 5, and then we've got this Gems of the Archive screening, which we will start around 6:15 or so, and then when that's done, we'll wrap up and start again tomorrow. For the professional visits and other visits tomorrow, those of you going to the Japanese tea house, you may have already seen it. It's just behind the building here. There will be just some protocols being sent out to those that are going in terms of what to wear and what to expect. So I think that's already sent out. So I think there's some more seats left going to Bishop. I just need to confirm that there's capacity on the bus, but we should be able to accommodate people. So, and lots of space is available as well for the library tour here. And so all that will be leaving tomorrow from Eamon. The visits, if you're going to Bishop Museum or going out to West Oahu to the Ulu Ulu Archive, the bus that will bring you back will drop you off here at the Eamon Center, but it will also drop you off in Waikiki down by the zoo. So if you don't have to worry about coming back here and then finding your way back to Waikiki. So, but any other questions, just let us know at the registration desk downstairs. And I look forward to chatting with you all tonight. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome. It's always sort of a problem when you have to vamp with the president of the organization, but hey, that's what we do here. I wanted to thank everyone who has gotten us here so far. This will probably be a little bit of a repetition, or you'll hear a little bit more of this at the president's address at the GA, but there was so much work that went into making this possible, and I just want to express extreme gratitude and thanks for that. So I think we're ready to go. So welcome to IASA Sapava 2025, DeSoto Brown.
No, leave that up. Leave that up. Oh, and then have his ready. Okay. You can have a seat, my love. I have 3 paragraphs to introduce you. Okay. It has been my privilege and mostly my pleasure to introduce DeSoto Brown, Bishop Museum's historian and curator, to their archives, to audiences since 2002, although we've known each other much longer than that. This image commemorates his receiving the Kahu Ikena Caretaker of Knowledge Award from the Hawaiian Historical Society in 2017. While DeSoto's tenure at the Bishop Museum officially commenced by volunteering in 1981, he became an archivist there in 1987. The museum it's in his DNA, as his grandmother, a close friend of Queen Lili'uokalani, was the second to sign the museum's guest book after Her Majesty's in 1889. The author of no less than, some say 24, some say 51 titles, I always say 51, titles including Beautiful Romantic Hawaii, and How the Fantasy Image Came to Be, and Hawaii at Play, Images of a Bygone Era. He is frequently an on-screen presenter in numerous films such as Hawaii Reels, that's R-E-E-L, Stories, Hawaiian Heritage. DeSoto's encyclopedic knowledge of Hawaii's history, especially our territorial years, coupled with his enthusiastic delivery, makes him a coveted speaker. Descended from John Papa'i'i, who was a personal attendant of Kamehameha II during the 19th century, revered Hawaiian knowledge and language expert Pat Bacon would say, if we remained a kingdom today, you couldn't even play with him. I'm grateful to play with DeSoto as a fellow archivist, and you will now understand why. Mahalo.
Well, how can I top that? Thank you all very much for being here, and I'm very happy to be speaking to all of you as the keynote speaker to open your conference. I'm sure this is going to be a wonderful and informative and enjoyable event for all of you to have come here wherever you have come from. As you heard, I'm DeSoto Brown. I work at Bishop Museum Archives in Bishop Museum itself in Honolulu. Some of you will be coming to Bishop Museum tomorrow for a tour. I will be there assisting with that. And I'm also going to be here tonight for the reception, showing a clip from one of the films that's in the Bishop Museum Archives collection. So we're starting this presentation, which is a historical look back at the audio and visual history that is pertinent to the Hawaiian Islands. And you're looking at a picture of an audience looking back at you. And this audience is in the Art Theater in downtown Honolulu in 1908. And the reason they're looking at you is for you to look at them and notice how ethnically diverse this audience is, even well over 100 years ago. And it's a clue as to something that is very relevant for this discussion, the mix of people who are here in Hawaii. And how did that come to be? And how does that affect what was created here within this technological realm? So, to begin with, we're going to look back at just a very short bit of Hawaiian history. And as Helen just said, Hawaii used to be a separate nation, and it was ruled by a monarchy. And the last of the rulers of this line of monarchs was Queen Liliuokalani, who you can see in the photograph here. In January of 1893, Liliuokalani was overthrown and the monarchy was brought to an end by a group of revolutionary insurrectionists, most of whom either were from the United States or were descended from Americans who lived here. This is going to make a big difference then in what the rest of this story is because, don't go that way, go this way, because it was always their intention to have Hawaii become a part of the United States. That's what they were aiming for. And it did not happen until August of 1898 when the annexation ceremony occurred. And in the photograph on the right, you see American flags being raised over Iolani Palace, formerly the royal residence, which had become the seat of government or the government building after the insurrection and overthrow. And despite the words on the newspaper that you see next to you in which everybody is exultant that this had happened, that was not in fact the case. A great deal of the population, particularly people who are ethnically Hawaiian, opposed this. And that's going to make a difference in the story as we go along. And I keep doing that wrong, pardon me. In December 1941, as everybody is aware, the island of Oahu was attacked by the nation of Japan because the island of Oahu had become heavily militarized by the American military, who saw this as something that was very important to have a presence in the Pacific as Japan was becoming increasingly tendency to take over other countries, which is, of course, what they did early in World War II. And that's why Oahu was bombed. But this also strengthened the military control of this island, which remains very strong today. And then in 1959, Hawaii transitioned from being the territory of Hawaii to being the state of Hawaii. And at the time, there was a great deal of celebration about this, excuse me, because it meant that our status as citizens was improved from that of being people who lived in a territory. However, it was going to be in coming years that people would increasingly question this military takeover, this military, et cetera, and it was going to be making a difference in what was produced within the realm of audio and visual materials. So now let's go through chronologically what we're talking about within the technology that all of us deal with in our various jobs and various things that we deal with. And first, we're going to start with sound recording. And of course, sound recording first became possible after the invention of the cylinder recorder by Thomas Edison and its subsequent sale in the late 1800s. And gradually, people began to realize that there were things that you could record that were very important and valuable for people who were scholars, and things like the voices of important, significant people, in addition to gradually realizing that you could record things purely for entertainment and sell those as well. And in Bishop Museum, there is a particular cylinder recording. This is not a photograph of it, but it does exist, which is the voice of King Kalakaua, who was the monarch who ruled Hawaii before Liliuokalani, who was his sister. And in December of 1890, Kalakaua was in San Francisco because he was in poor health and literally on his deathbed. A representative of the Edison Company came to him, showed him a machine, and recorded his voice. That cylinder belongs to Bishop Museum, and we've always hoped that we could bring it back to a situation or a condition where we could hear his voice. Well, unfortunately, it got played so many times and worn out, and the condition of the waxy covering that was used on it to make the recording is such that it is no longer possible to hear his voice. And I took the cylinder to a lab in Berkeley some years ago specifically to attempt to have this brought back, and it was not possible. However, Bishop Museum did make continuing use of cylinder recordings in the 1920s and 30s, again because people realized you could record languages, you could record songs, you could record chants, you could record things and preserve them even if they were in danger of going away. And so in addition to a project in the early 1920s that recorded Hawaiian chants, there was another project in 1933, which you see a photograph of here. This is a Hawaiian man named Kuluvaimaka. He was a Hawaiian chanter who had been born in 1845. He was recorded with the assistance of Dr. Kenneth Emery, who you see standing on the left, to preserve the chants that he knew. And again, it is not simply the words of the chants which have historical references, but also the way he performs them. It is more than simply writing down the words, it's how did he do this. But cylinder recordings were kind of a dead end technologically, as all of us know, and they gradually went out of use for most people. And they were replaced instead by disc recordings. Same technology, same analog, same type of thing. The needle is dragged over the groove cut in the surface, but it's just a different format. And that's what you see in this photograph here. That's a phonograph that plays disc recordings, and that is at the Chinese old people's home in Palolo, which I'm sure you know very well. Yes. And as the discs, recorded discs became popular for entertainment, the companies, particularly in the United States, realized they could send crews out to all different places to make recordings, which they could subsequently sell to people who spoke different languages and were from different cultures. And so some of those crews came here to Hawaii, which of course by then is a part of the United States. And on the left, you see a label from one of those early Hawaiian records made here by the Columbia Company, which is one of the two big American record companies, the other being Victor. And if you look carefully, you can see it says, made in Hawaii. This probably is from about 1913, as I remember, but it was recorded here. And then on the right side of the screen, you see a leaflet that was published by the Pathé Company, which was a French company, but also was present in the United States. And it's listing Hawaiian records. That's because records made in Hawaiian were so popular in the United States and internationally that they sold tremendously well. Even though the listeners all over the world could not understand Hawaiian, they enjoyed the sound of it and they enjoyed the Hawaiian music style. Therefore, there were countless records manufactured with Hawaiian language being preserved for entertainment purposes. And during the teens and 20s in the United States in particular, they were so popular that, as you can see, there were separate small catalogs given away to customers who wanted to buy Hawaiian records. And this popularity of Hawaiian music meant that Hawaiian musicians traveled throughout the United States and, in fact, internationally to perform on stage in person. And on the left, you see an advertisement for a traveling company that includes Hawaiian musicians and dancers traveling in the United States, presenting a show called My Honolulu Girl. And on the right is a photograph of a group of Hawaiian musicians performing standing outside a theater in London, England, where they were performing in about 1920. That means that Hawaiians were recorded on various types of audio technologies throughout the world. And interestingly, some of those musicians who traveled all over the place ended up never even coming back home. they ended up living somewhere far away because they had traveled so much and they never came back. On the left is a photograph. Both of these pictures are from the 1930s. On the left, the man sitting on the right in that picture is a man named Andy Iona. And he ended up living in California. He performed on the soundtracks of different Hollywood films and appeared in some Hollywood films as a performer. And on the right is a man named Ray Kinney, who traveled to New York City in 1937 with his orchestra and dancers to be the house performers at a very popular nightclub called the Hawaiian Room at the Lexington Hotel. And the dancer who was seated in the middle, Pualani Mossman, went to New York to do this. She ended up marrying the man who was the head accountant for the Hotel Lexington and living in continental United States and never coming home herself. And she appeared not only in some recordings, but also in some films as well. In 1936, the first local record company was created, and it was called Hawaiian Transcription Productions. And on the right, you see the label from one of those 78 RPM discs made by HTP. And at the top, it says, "The Voice of Hawaii, KGU Radio Artist." KGU is the radio station that Hawaiian Transcription Productions was a part of. And that was owned by the Honolulu Advertiser newspaper. This was very common in the United States at that time for newspapers to start and own radio stations as well. And on the left is a leaflet that's a list of the recordings that HTP was releasing. HTP probably did not last for more than 3 or 4 years. It did record, however, hundreds of different recordings sold to the public. And here's a picture of their radio studio, or excuse me, their recording studio, as it appeared in 1936 when they opened. And in the large room, that's where the performers would be. That's where people would sing. They would play instruments, sometimes even just give speeches. And then in the back corner is the engineer sitting in a separate little cubicle where he's actually overseeing the cutting of the disc. In other words, the disc that's being incised by the needle to create the master from which records will be made. And even though HTP wasn't around long, as I said, a lot of the songs that they recorded were released in later years re-released by other companies, and they didn't just perform Hawaiian music, they performed American-style popular music, and they recorded some stuff in other languages too. And after World War II, there was an explosion of local record companies, as you can see by this montage of record labels. And these are all, again, from 78 RPM discs, which were the standard throughout the world for many decades in the 20th century. And some of these companies maybe only released 3 or 4 or 5 records, but others released hundreds of different recordings. And again, they didn't just stick to popular music in the American style or, most cases, Hawaiian music. They also recorded people singing in other languages, sometimes in Filipino, some of the Filipino languages, mostly in Japanese, but you also can find records that are rock and roll, and you can also find country western records that were recorded here as well. Now, moving forward technologically, we go from 78 RPM discs to the 2 next types of records that were invented and put on the market in the late 1940s in the United States by the 2 major record companies. First, the 7-inch 45 RPM disc, and then the more popular 33 1/3 12-inch LP or album. And that's what this lady is showing you in this publicity photo from the late 1950s. And these were very popularly produced for, again, by local companies, primarily Hawaiian music, but for representing all different kinds of styles. And remember, we're part of the United States, so all of the things that are happening in the USA are happening here as well. And during the late 60s, particularly the early 1970s, came a time called the Hawaiian Renaissance, in which Hawaiian people began to re-examine their identities and begin to turn away from thinking of themselves as Americans, which had been imposed upon them, to thinking, well, no, we're going to think of ourselves as Hawaiian. And one of the ways this manifestation was presented, in addition to, for example, reviving and preserving the Hawaiian language, was through music. So a great many LPs were released at this time, which were really intrinsic to the Hawaiian Renaissance movement. And the picture of, on the left, the Gabby album was one of the really crucial ones of this time period. This is Gabi Pahinui, a pure Hawaiian man who had been a professional entertainer for years, but he performed in a lot of venues like in Waikiki where he sang for tourists. He now was instead going to a more authentic or less glamorous style, and he played a style called slack key guitar. That was something that had been invented by Hawaiians in the early 1900s. And in the upper right corner, you see a woman who, Auntie Alice Namakelua, who had learned to play slack key in the early 1900s when she was young. And she became revered as one of the people who had carried on this style. And then below her, one of the, among the many musicians who again turned away from the more refined sound to the more authentic or earthy sound. And those were these three guys, the Sunday Manoa. Those are the Casimiro brothers and Peter Moon. And there were many others who, again, brought this forth in the records that were released at that time. And here's something that really shows what I'm talking about. These are the Makaha Sons of Ni'ihau. This album cover photo is totally unglamorized. They are sitting on the beach at Makaha, which is here on the island of Oahu, where they live. They are emphasizing that they live in the country, not the city. And they're showing you how casual they are. They're showing you how down home they are. Many people, millions of people throughout the world, are familiar with and love the song Over the Rainbow by Israel Kamakawiwo Ole. It remains popular to this day after a big boost of excitement in the earlier 2000s. Well, that is sitting on the left side. And that's really emphasizing where he comes from. And this is a really good indication of how the record industry really reflected the Hawaiian Renaissance. However, even as that was going on, the regular types of music were still going on too. And not every Hawaiian performer or local performer was really showing how authentic they were. They were living an urban type of life. And as you can see by these two record covers from the 1970s and 80s, these guys are emphasizing, look at our big white Lincoln Continentals, and look at us, we are the swingers of Waikiki. I have to emphasize that we cannot, as we think about preservation, as we think about archiving things, we have to be careful to cover everything. You do not make value judgments of this is authentic and this isn't. All of this is part of Hawaii. All of this is part of our culture. These deserve representation and preservation just like the other records that I showed you just before this. Well, now we're going to move to another type of technology, and this happy young lady, is showing us that she's got these albums spread out in front of her, but importantly, in the lower right corner of the picture, what do we see? Reels of magnetic tape. Magnetic tape is the next step forward in this process, and magnetic tape, or recording on magnetic tape, had been developed much earlier in decades than this, but it wasn't until the early 1940s that Germany began producing magnetic tape recorders. And when Germany was defeated in World War II, the United States military found various magnetic tape recorders, brought them back to the US, used those to then turn it into the industry standard that it was going to become later. And Bishop Museum adopted magnetic tape just like everybody else did in all different kinds of ways. The first magnetic tape recorder that Bishop Museum owned was probably from 1951, and in this picture, I believe that's the one in the center that Dorothy Barrere is standing with her hands on. She was one of the Bishop Museum employees, who I knew, in fact. But more important than her is the lady who's seated, and that is Mary Kawena Pukui. She was the premier Hawaiian scholar of the 20th century, and if not for her work, we would not know a great deal of what we do know about Hawaiian culture and Hawaiian language. And she spent her entire adult life working at Bishop Museum, and she made hundreds of magnetic tape recorder recordings for which we can be very grateful, because magnetic tape obviously allows people to create all kinds of things with much easier, more portable equipment than had been necessary to create disc recordings. And here's a photograph of one of those many recording sessions that Kawena participated in. This is a picture from 1960, and Kawena and her assistant, L.A. Williams, who is sitting in on the other side of the table in the striped shirt, who assisted her, they traveled to all the different Hawaiian islands except Niihau, which is not possible to visit for most cases. And they recorded informal oral histories with other people in all these different people's homes and other types of informal situations. And Kawena would ask people about their lives. She would ask them about historical questions. And many of these recordings are all in the Hawaiian language. So not only do we know the content of what people talked about, but we have a record of the Hawaiian language that they spoke. And Hawaiian is a threatened language, and every recording that we have of it, therefore, is very important, particularly from this time period of the 1950s and 60s, in which the people being recorded were elderly and had learned it 50 or 60 years earlier. So it's a preservation of Hawaiian that's not actually spoken exactly the same way today. And now we're going to move forward to moving images and motion picture film. And the first movies shown in Hawaii occurred in 1897. The first films shot in Hawaii came the following year in 1898. And the picture on the left shows one of the first cameramen who lived here. And this picture is from about 1910. This man is Robert Bonine. And the camera that he's using is actually a wood-bodied camera. And it is in the collection at Bishop Museum. Have you seen it? You are familiar with it. Yes, you have. My coworker knows what I'm talking about. And on the right side, in the same location, as you can see on the beach at Waikiki, professional cameramen using 35 millimeter movie cameras who are from Hollywood. But more importantly, in addition to those professional cameras on tripods, if you look carefully on the right, there are two men who are holding small cameras using 16 millimeter film, which had been introduced by Kodak in the early 1920s. That's going to come up again as we continue this process and this historical overview. Now, as I've already said, and this really emphasizes this, Hawaii during this period was a part of the United States. We are immersed in American culture. That's why we're speaking American English, because this is what we all learned. However, one of the manifestations of this is the entire Hollywood movie culture. And we had here just as much Hollywood influence as everybody else had in the rest of the USA, and in fact, all over the world. And as you can see, we had movie theaters, just like American theaters everywhere else, in which we watched Hollywood movies. Unfortunately, like everywhere else, we have lost most of our historic movie theaters, and both of these no longer exist. But as we were watching Hollywood, Hollywood was also watching us and producing movies which were set in Hawaii. And most of these are entirely fictional, most of them are dramatic, most of them are phony, most of them have no relevance to who we really are. However, they too are very important for the depictions that they do show, as tainted or as twisted as those might be, because we need to be aware that those were created. However, in addition, some of these films actually contained location filming where people came here and filmed actual stuff. That, of course, is relevant even if what's going on in the rest of the picture isn't, because we can see what's going on in the background. And as archivists, fortunately, the output of Hollywood is not our responsibility to take care of. So that's something that I'm very grateful we can put on to other people in California and say, you guys do it. We're not going to deal with 35 millimeter nitrate films in huge quantities. You do the work and then let us watch the stuff that you've preserved. But not everything that was made here or that depicts Hawaii was a Hollywood dramatic film that has a dramatic story, because there are all kinds of other genres of film. And there are, for example, travelogues. This is a travelogue from 1934. Although this is a black and white photograph, it was shot in color, amazingly, but that's 2-color, not 3-color. It's also got a soundtrack, and it's one of a series of 6 films that were commissioned by the Hawaii Tourist Bureau for promotional purposes, and these were shown in theaters all around the United States. And in addition, just like I said, even though this is a skewed version of what they want everybody to see and the stuff they want you to be thinking is beautiful and wonderful, it also shows real life. It also shows real scenes. That, again, makes these relevant for both the skewed version and the reality that are depicted. And again, every travelogue has elements of truth in them as well. This is a cameraman filming for a travelogue in 1926. And even though what came out of this is probably not brutally realistic, they actually are filming Hawaiian people engaged in actual Hawaiian activities. And for those reasons, again, these films are of great value. Now we're going to go to another technology, and that's radio. The first commercial entertainment radio station in the world came on the air in the United States in 1920, and radio grew very quickly in the United States, so that by 1922, our first two radio stations began here in the city of Honolulu. And here's a photograph of one of those stations. This again is KGU, which I mentioned earlier as the creator of the first record company. And this is their main studio. And in 1936, obviously a lot of what was broadcast was live. It was created live, it was broadcast live, and it was never, unfortunately, ever copied or kept any track of. And in this room is where the performers or the speakers, whoever was on the air, would speak into the microphone. And as you can see, there's a piano because they frequently had musicians here. But not everything they played was live, because you can also see in the lower left corner, there are turntables with large discs on them because they played what were called transcriptions or transcript records of previously recorded programs. And if you look through the windows at the back of the room, you can see there's auditorium seating in the next room. This was where audiences could come and watch live musical performances for the radio broadcasts, but where they were closed off so they didn't interrupt as the performers were in the midst of whatever they were doing. Now, in the 1920s in the United States, commercial radio stations began to band together into networks. And one of those networks was NBC, the National Broadcasting Corporation. KGU was a member of NBC, and that meant that in addition to creating their own programming, they played network radio programs too. But it was not possible for those to be broadcast from North America for us to hear here. In order for us to hear them, those had to be recorded on discs and sent here and played on turntables here. So that's what that guy is doing in the other photograph. He's playing these professional transcript records of national radio programs. Now, I knew a man who began work at KGU in the early 1950s, and he told me that when he started working there, there was a storeroom entirely filled with these radio transcript records, mostly from national broadcasts, but other things that KGU had created. And he said within a few weeks of starting to work there, one day he walked in and the entire room was cleared. They had thrown away all of their discs. This is the reality, unfortunately, of what records used to exist that don't exist anymore. And it wasn't just that you played the records that people sent to you, it was also possible to make records too. That's how KGU was able to create Hawaiian Transcription Productions. And this is a machine that is literally cutting a disc, meaning the needle is being dragged across that smooth surface to make the groove with the vibrations, making the sound that gets reproduced. And so radio stations and other people too had recording devices like this. Unfortunately, they didn't last very long. If you played them a lot, they wore out because, again, you're dragging a needle over the surface. But they also, unfortunately, had a tendency to self-destruct and lose their surfaces. So many of the recordings like this that would have been made here are gone for those reasons. Most of what we were listening to, most of what was broadcast, of course, was in English because, again, we're part of the United States. But there were many programs that were in other languages for the different racial groups who all live here. And that's what I was talking about at the very beginning. So here's a publicity photo from 1934 publicizing a Chinese language program that was heard every week on KGU. And in addition to Chinese, also various Filipino languages, and there's more than one language in the Philippines, so there are different languages that have been used for broadcasting and recording. But mostly, the other language that was most popular was Japanese, because the largest ethnic group, locally, was Japanese people. And that led to, in the 1960s and 70s, 2 radio stations which were entirely in Japanese, and a TV station whose programming was almost overwhelmingly Japanese language. Most of that is gone today because of a lot of different reasons. Now, one of the major radio broadcasts that emanated from here was called Hawaii Calls. And this was on the air from the 1930s into the 1970s, and it was incredibly popular all over the world. It was heard on hundreds of stations by the 1950s. I mean, it was like 600 or 700 stations every week. Now, obviously, it wasn't possible to be broadcast live from here to go all over the world. That meant that transcriptions, either discs or later magnetic tape recordings, had to physically be sent out for those to be played in other places. And you would think that with a well-organized, very popular situation like this, there'd be good representation of surviving Hawaii Calls programs, and you would be wrong, because most of them have been lost. And even something like this, which was valuable and which was worth money, didn't end up being kept. Only a fraction of these still exist. So even for something like that, there wasn't a lot of preservation. And these leaflets, which were given out by different commercial radio stations here, really emphasize an important point. Unlike in other countries where the federal government or the national government has control over broadcasting, radio broadcasting, television broadcasting, in the United States, that was not the case. The United States is, of course, very proud of being this free enterprise, free market, capitalist economy. So every one of the radio stations was an independent business. And every one of those independent businesses meant that being independent, they might create their own material that they would broadcast, but they kept it themselves. There's no central archive for all of these things to be donated to or given to because that's legally required. And when those radio stations went out of business or they got bought out by somebody else, the programs that they might have kept got thrown away. So the great majority of these broadcasts, which were everywhere at the time, were not documented and are gone forever because of the fact that there is no central repository where they're required to be put into. And now we're going to go to the next type of broadcasting, which of course is television. And television began in the earlier 20th century. Certainly by the 30s, there were various television broadcasts occurring. And in the 1930s, both Germany and Britain began national broadcasting of television programs. But in the United States, again, it was more free market economy, and so each station began on its own. There was a hiatus from 1948 to 1952 in which the federal government stopped issuing licenses for new TV stations, which meant that a lot of parts of the United States didn't have any television for during that period. But finally, when that ended in 1952, we got television. And here are photographs from an appliance store in the city of Hilo on the island of Hawaii, proudly announcing to the world that televisions are now available for purchase. And here is a Zenith television in the window that people are looking at with great interest. And here is a photograph of the first commercial television broadcast from Channel 9 KGMB TV here in Honolulu in December 1952. But photographs is all that there are, because it was not recorded. It couldn't have been recorded on videotape because that didn't exist yet. The only way it could have been recorded was by shooting a 16mm movie either in the studio or a television screen that was showing it. But nobody did that. So we're never going to know what exactly that looked like or sounded like. And the man who is being kissed and given a flower lei was an existingly popular radio announcer at that time who was tapped to be the first person on TV because a lot of people already knew who he was. So television, just like radio, grew very rapidly after it was first introduced, and other competing stations went on the air very soon. And both of these publicity or promotional material items are from that early time period, 1954, 55. And it's very ironic. And these two stations, of course, no longer exist. So whatever they created is gone, just as I was already saying. And it's ironic that the piece on the left for the program schedule for the fall season of 1954 proudly announces the greatest lineup of shows in Hawaiian TV history. Well, that Hawaiian TV history, how old was it? It was a year and a half old. So that wasn't saying very much because it had just gotten started. Because there were so few TV stations in this early period, everybody who grew up at that time remembers the small amount of stuff that was on TV. And I am the same age as these guys that you see in these two photographs from the 1950s. And therefore, we remember things like local TV personalities, local radio personalities, the stuff that was on television. And because it was so limited, everybody shared in a very similar experience. As time passed, we went from 3 TV stations to 4, and then to 5, and then to 6. And then we went to cable TV. And gradually, as the diversity of what was offered to us grew, we lost that shared experience. So this is representation of a very specific time period in which there was a very high penetration into the general population of a small amount of television broadcasts. What were those television broadcasts? Well, from the 1950s. Well, a lot of it was, of course, network programming from the United States, but there was all kinds of local programming. Here's a photograph from 1953, and if you look in the background, let me see if I can get the cursor off there. You can see that on the wall behind this man, there's a placard that says Bishop Museum, which is where I work. This is a program about Bishop Museum from 1953. And in the TV studio, various artifacts have been brought in to decorate where this man is sitting. He is a member of Bishop Museum's Board of Trustees. What is he talking about? We have absolutely no idea because there is no record of this program. Most programming, local programming, was live. It was done once, it was sent out into outer space, and we will never see or hear it again, unfortunately. And even documentation like this, still photographs of things on television in the 1950s and 60s, is rare too, because nobody took pictures of TV stations and even TV programs, and even if they did, frequently they were poor quality pictures that didn't come out. So we're very fortunate that a professional photographer happened to take these pictures in 1959 to give us not only a sense of what a local television program looked like, and those were pretty darn boring in many cases. It's just people sitting in the TV studio talking. It was like radio with pictures. And obviously, as you can see, this is a panel discussion involving people probably from, sitting on the left is the governor at that time, and that's Governor Quinn. I assume these people are representatives of both labor unions. Arthur Rutledge was a labor leader, and also probably local corporations. We don't know what they talked about. This program doesn't exist. But what you can see here is the quality of what a TV picture looked like, because there are no working 1950s televisions anymore. We can see the quality of the image here. We can see that it's certainly not high resolution. Furthermore, this is broadcast TV. You're getting this signal through the air brought in by your antenna, either on your roof or on the top of the TV. There's always interference. So what we saw was very different from what we see today, and this is just a hint of what that was like. As time passed and local television stations got more money, they also began to produce higher quality special programming. And in some cases, many cases, these were musical programs. And when a TV station had spent a good amount of money and they had recorded it on 2-inch videotape or 1-inch videotape, and it was a fine finished production, they realized that there was value to keeping it because it could be broadcast again. People would watch it again. They could sell advertising for it. They could make money. So as time passes, more of those types of programs were kept and more of those have survived. So like these ladies that you see here performing on KHET Channel 11, which is a PBS affiliate station here, this is the type of programming that does survive in small amounts from later time periods. And just as with Hollywood, TV used us as a setting for multiple different, very popular TV programs. The first national television series that was set here was called Hawaiian Eye. That was on ABC from 1959 to 1963. Very little location filming. It's all fake. It's all on Hollywood. But Hawaii Five-0, the first Hawaii Five-0 from 1968 to 1980, and then followed by Magnum P.I. in the 1980s, were series that were shot here entirely. So all of the backgrounds are real. Everything you see outside is real, even though It's very fictionalized. Hawaii Five-0 was tremendously popular all over the world in reruns. It made Jack Lord hugely famous internationally. And to this day, people somewhere are watching it. And again, it's not true, but there's a lot in it that we still want to be aware of and still needs to be preserved. Fortunately, again, we don't have to preserve these here. That's the purview of other people who own the rights to them, and we can just watch them, thank goodness. Now, I'm going to end with a very important point, and this photograph really brings that all into our discussion. This is a photo from the 1970s of this lady who is very proudly showing off the various electronic devices that she owns. And on her kitchen counter, she's got a television. Next to her is equipment that could be potentially a radio receiver. It could be a turntable for long-playing records. But next to that also is a player for 8-track cassette tapes. That means, but the point of all this is, she's got all this equipment, but she is purely a consumer. She is not a producer of any recorded or visual material. She has equipment to play it, but the content comes to her from other people and other sources outside of her. That is something that was very true for most of this period, but it began to change when 16mm film was introduced by Kodak in the early 1920s, because for the first time, you could have a small camera that ran and used inexpensive film so that people could create their own films. And that was exactly why Kodak did this, because they wanted a market of people making home movies, which is what they were successful in doing. But it wasn't just home movies, it was that you could also produce other films in 16mm for smaller markets. And this is a magazine ad from 1934 showing, fictionally, a 16mm movie camera in use at Waikiki, like the photograph that I showed you earlier, in which real-life people were using those cameras at Waikiki. However, for most of this period, the equipment that was used to produce most of the stuff that we saw and listened to was so huge, so cumbersome, so expensive, that it was only wealthy corporations who could do it. This picture from 1960 shows the mobile television unit of KHVH-TV, which is a local Honolulu TV station. This immense truck probably, I'm guessing, has got a 2-inch video recorder inside it. And on the top of it are TV cameras. All of this stuff was not only huge and difficult to handle, but it was incredibly expensive. Therefore, only those people are producing the stuff. But one final thought. This is something that's going to affect all of us in this field. Now, that's changed. The equipment that you see here in photographs from the 1980s, which was still somewhat cumbersome, but this is the predecessor to what we are today. We have personal computers coming into use, and we have mobile phones, even though that's a flip phone, that's not a smartphone. These are going to lead to what every single one of us possesses, and every single one of us is addicted to, and every single one of us carries around at all times. And this is something that allows us to be the producers. We can record sound, we can record visuals, we can edit this, and we can disseminate it to the whole world by the internet. What does that mean? It means that now there are not just a handful of producers, it means there are billions of producers. It means that a lot of that is taken out of the hands of people like us who are trying to save it, because we're never going to get our hands on all of this. What is going to happen is it's going to fall into the preservation, if it gets preserved, of, again, major corporations that control the internet and how digital information is kept. But this is, again, a very shortened version of audio and visual materials used here in the Hawaiian Islands, how they've been used, what that transition, what that story is. Some of it's going to be unique to us, but other parts of it are going to be true for all over the world, because many of you are from all different parts of the world. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope that all of you are going to have a very good time at this event. I'm sure it's going to be informative, as I hope this was, as well as enjoyable, and I'll be seeing some of you around over the next 2 days. Thank you.
Mahalo, mahalo, DeSoto. So rather than take questions from the audience right now, we're going to stay on schedule. You're welcome to go downstairs for our coffee break, and DeSoto will be graciously joining us so that you can hit him up at that time. And I would like to bring to DeSoto's attention the Kaleo Hawaii tapes that were started in the 1960s by a UH professor when Hawaiian was, you could take Hawaiian as a foreign language. He had a Hawaiian radio show, Kaleo Hawaii, where it was completely in Hawaiian, and he would interview people from around the islands. And Larry Kimura had told me that what he would do is put his cassette into the player at his apartment at home, at his apartment, drive down to the radio station, do the show, come back, and turn it off. And that's how he captured his radio show. And he kept all the cassette tapes. And then when he used it in the language lab, or when we tried to digitize it and put it on, what was the problem? The music, the copyrighted music that was the interludes between the interviews. So these are some of the few records that we have of the language and that continued on through the decades. So let's go downstairs, have a break, and hit up DeSoto for more questions. Okay? See you back here.
can't hear us.
I can now, yes.
Okay. Okay, so he can hear us?
I can hear you now, yep.
Oh, excellent, fantastic. So we're all good. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, good, yep.
So I'm going to do the introductions. I'm going to read the bios from the SCED. And then, good morning, Rachel. And then we're going to go with you first, Ray, and then we'll go into Rachel. There will
Yep.
be a video recording by Karen, and then we're going to wind up with Trey and Yuri doing their slideshows. The way the technology is going to work is that when you will be able to see the slideshows that are being presented, so that you'll be able to see that on your screen, but when there's nothing being shared through the Zoom, you will just be looking at each other. There's no mic, there's no camera set up outside of, there's no camera set up for the Zoom to see the audience. That's through the live stream that'll be on YouTube. And then when we're done with Yuri's presentation, we'll all come back. There's a screen behind us, which you're on right now, and we'll bring you back up, and I'll moderate questions. For the slideshows themselves, I'm going to drive the boat for those, so if you do the next slide, I can take care of that, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, we can do a test slide. Ray, I'm going to bring up your presentation so that we can do
Yep.
a test run of that. All right, going into the share now. And there we go. Let me know if you see that.
Yes, I can see it now, yep.
Okay. So let's just try one. Just give me
So,
a little bit and then say next
so next
slide.
slide, I just say next slide. Yep, next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. That's it.
Awesome.
Next slide.
Awesome.
Good.
Okay, end slideshow. So did that work for you, Erica? Awesome. Okay, so we're good. Rachel, how's Culpeper today?
Channel 7, Channel 7, Channel 7. Number 6, number 6. Number 5.
They're doing a mic check for the.
Okay. Culpeper's saying it looks like
Four.
fall came. I'm not ready for
check
fall.
2.
It's false fall. It'll change in a week.
Okay, great.
Well, then again, I mean,
Check, check,
you've
check.
sort of been the harbinger of all things odd, so maybe it won't be. Maybe this is
I
just
know.
fall.
Yeah. Ray, the entire time I've been in this job since January, every single day somebody says, this isn't how it normally works. Like about the weather, about the administration, about the everything. Yeah. This is what they say to me every single day.
Okay.
How's Hawaii? Is the hurricane making it rain all the time?
No, we had a little bit of on the walk back from the venue to the hotel, we had a little bit of rain
Check, check, check.
yesterday, but it looks like the storm's moving north, so it's back to blue skies, and this place is amazingly beautiful. That's all I can really say.
You can't tell me that. Yeah.
Sorry, no, it's all work. I've been in the hotel room answering emails, and
That's better. Yes.
So
Check
yeah.
1, 2.
I got good news from Rashi and Christy. They emailed, so I think
I
I'm
saw
gonna
that.
do a little bit of work on that probably tomorrow morning. I've been waking up at 3:30 in the morning because of jet lag, so I got
That's
time
what
to do
does.
work.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's all. That's good news. We had the LC staff. So Kate and Morgan and myself, Guha and Judith, we all met with the student chapter of the Society of American Archivists. We did some recruitment for junior fellows. We talked about what it's like to work in AV archives and everything. So it's been a very nice trip from that kind of point of view.
And the travel was smooth, smooth flying.
Oh, smooth flyings, in and out. Got no real delays. I had a whole row of seats to myself on the flight out from LAX. So that's always
Oh, that's nice.
a spoiling kind of attention.
And Ray, remind me what city you're in.
Say that again, Rachel.
What city are you in?
What study?
City? What?
Oh, what city?
Where are you?
No, I'm in Canberra. Canberra.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. Here it's just the beginning of spring. We've had a terrible
Yeah.
winter, and it's just beginning. Spring is just beginning. Yep. So, Canberra has temperature extremes. Very hot summer, very cold winter.
And the JTS that's planned for Canberra is
In March.
March? Okay,
Yep.
March.
Yep.
Great.
Yep. You
So it
coming to
should
that?
be perfect then, right?
Yeah.
Perfect weather?
Will be good. It should be good weather. It's autumn. So all the trees will be turning. Place will be quite pretty. Are you coming?
Maybe. We'll see what
Okay.
happens with the federal government here.
Yeah. Yes.
Generally, they fund us up through the 15th, so it would be perfect timing, Rachel. I do think that the themes of the conference and some of the work that we've been doing on the third floor that Allison's been doing, Morgan, makes a heck of a lot of sense. Talking with Trey about MTAP and trying to bring that forward through CCAAA. So it's a really good time for us, for JTS, to be coming back up.
I was super involved in the 2016 and the 2019, so yeah, I'd love to go, but we'll see. Strange times.
Yes.
The euphemism unprecedented times covers so many sins these days.
Everything, yeah.
Mm.
Patrick, how long is this panel?
We are scheduled for an hour. So I think if I was going to
Hop out and get some more water.
Yeah, we still have 15 minutes before we go. I'm just going to give a real quick introduction and we'll get into things. I'm going to introduce speakers by their name and have their full bios are on SCED, basically names and what you currently are doing, and then full bios are on SCED, just because I want to make sure everyone has time, and then we have questions there. I'll moderate the questions. They've set up, well, as you'll see once you can see the live stream, they've set up the dais so that it's just chairs with handheld mics. So we'll be able to have everybody float in and out when they're doing their presentations. I'll probably drive all of the stuff and everyone will just kind of be, it's a talking head roundtable sort of setup.
Okay, I'm going to be right back.
Okay.
Room number?
Sure, where do I find that?
Should I go back to the somewhere. How did we find it yesterday? Like, didn't I? Maybe I created a sticky or something on the desktop.
Rachel, can you confirm that you see the first slide of Ray's presentation? Awesome. They
Yes,
do.
I can see it. Yep.
Ray's going first. Does that sound good? I'll wait till you introduce me.
Yeah, okay.
Bye. I mean, I'm here, but bye.
It's good to see you. Thank you both for doing this. I wish I had the. I wish I didn't have to use Sked for the.
Testing. Hot mic.
You said you like what?
I think you gotta turn off your mic.
Oh, hold on. Let's just wait. Is it over there? Where's it going? Where's the mic? Or where's the mouse? I lost it. Oh, there we go. Okay. It's still, or is it the speaker?
Oh, it's on that end.
Turn this mic back on.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Are we good?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. I suppose we could get started, right? We're just waiting for one more panelist to show up.
Okay.
Sunshine. All right. I think we're all going to get settled in and get started here. Everyone good? Everyone having a good time? Get coffee, pastries. They're amazing. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So
Okay.
last year, when we decided that we were going to pursue a conference in the Pacific, Andy Martin and I started talking about the Singapore resolutions and what that meant to archival collaboration and work that we can do together, and it seemed to be something that we could put together a plenary on. And thanks to the collaboration and the cooperation of a great many people, we're here today to do that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give everyone a brief introduction, and then we're going to have 2 remote presentations, and then we're going to have a video, and then we're going to have 2 live presentations, and then a Q&A afterwards. So on the panel with me today is Dr. Ray Edmondson, an international writer and teacher on audiovisual archiving and documentary heritage, also the first president of SAPAVA. Rachel Stolce is the current chief of the National Audiovisual Conservation Center, part of the Library of Congress that sits in Culpeper, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. Karen Chan is currently the executive director of the Asian Film Archive based in Singapore and the current president of SIPAVA. Trey Burney is the director of digitization and conservation services at Cornell University Libraries. And Yuri Shimoda is the production supervisor? Production supervisor at Warner Brothers, yes. Supervisor of Preservation Services at Warner Brothers Discovery, and the current president of the Association for Recorded Sound Collections, ARSC. Karen Chan can't be with us today, so we have Joshua and Senchai from the SIPAVA Executive Council to be here for the question and answer part. So without further ado, we're going to move it right along. So Ray, if you would, please.
Yes, okay, thank you. Well, there's the title. Go to the next slide, please. Now, the creation of SIPAVA in 1996 was the direct result of a management seminar held at the National Film and Sound Archive in Canberra the previous year. It was the first time archivists from the ASEAN countries and Australasia had assembled and spent quality time, that is a whole month together. They wanted to continue the conversation, and they realised that their current concerns were never going to get to the top of the agenda of the established professional associations, which were dominated by archives in Europe and North America. They wanted to make the region and its audiovisual heritage visible. So SIPAVA was launched the following year at its inaugural conference in Manila with great energy and very little money. Annual conferences, seminars and workshops followed thereafter, as well as a joint Australia-Philippines film restoration project with a high diplomatic profile. That was the film called Gilyuko, made in 1939. Next slide, please. The joint SIPAVA-IASA conference in 2000 was quite an adventure for both associations. SIPAVA was still very young. IASA, still heavily European-based, had never met in Southeast Asia. As a crossroads between East and West, Singapore was a logical and practical location for a joint conference. Another consideration was the character of both associations. From the outset, SIPAVA had embraced the full spectrum of the audiovisual media. In 1999, the previous year, IASA had officially changed from the International Association of Sound Archives to the International Association of Sound and Audiovisual Archives. Both associations had constitutions that provided for individual as well as organisational membership. The Associated Trade Show was a new experience for SIPAVA, though not for IASA. Next slide, please. The conference more or less coincided with the establishment of the Coordinating Council of Audiovisual Archives Associations, the CCAAA. It had grown out of UNESCO's Roundtable of Audiovisual Records, established in 1981 in the wake of UNESCO's formal adoption of the Recommendation for the Safeguarding and Preservation of Moving Images in 1980. Its members were FIAF, IASA, FIAT, IFLA, and ICA. It made these associations talk to each other, rather than operating as rival fiefdoms. The idea of the Joint Technical Symposium grew out of the round table. The creation of the CCAAA with additional members, that is SIPAVA, AMIA and ASK, made the forum less of a talking shop and more of an advocacy group, shaping global policy and lobbying for better preservation efforts worldwide. At first, this change of flavour didn't suit everyone, and some members were unenthusiastic. However, its formal relationship with UNESCO is unusual because it is an association of associations, rather than being a single legal entity like ICA or IFLA. CCAAA organises the annual World Day for Audiovisual Heritage on behalf of UNESCO. This annual event is held on the 27th of October, and this year it reaches its 20th anniversary. Next slide, please. Here's the first clause of the Singapore Declaration. For IASA and SIPAVA, the vision for the CCAAA was there from the beginning. SIPAVA didn't actually join until 2002. There was a period of probation before it could be formally recognised by UNESCO, but there was no lack of enthusiasm. Now, note the last sentence. To urge UNESCO to afford it due support and recognition on a par with existing levels of support for libraries, archives and museums and peak bodies. The audiovisual media deserve the same level of recognition as the more traditional bodies. We can ask, has this been achieved yet? Next slide, please. Here's the second clause of the Singapore Declaration. Now, the principle here is absolutely correct. Its fulfilment is a huge challenge. We all know horror stories of loss during the 20th century through indifference, neglect, amnesia, lack of resources, and sometimes through armed conflict, political changes and natural disasters. And the losses fall unevenly on different countries and cultures. The audiovisual memory of the 20th century is an uneven patchwork. But the digital realities of today were only barely glimpsed in 2000. Social media as we know it now did not exist. Video games were still in their infancy. Archival collections still mainly consisted of analogue objects, magnetic tape, films and discs. Mutual support and encouragement have changed the balance, but there's so far still to go. Next slide, please. Now, our field is now a formal profession with university courses around the world. This recognises not only the status, depth and ethicality of our field, but also its nature. It is a vocation, not just a job, and it involves a measure of personal commitment and even sacrifice. Nobody becomes rich or famous by working in an audiovisual archive. 25 years ago, we saw the absolute necessity of professional status. But because university fees are expensive and campus-based courses are geographically inflexible, professional training is still not equally available to everyone. Next slide, please. Well, here's the question. Has the Singapore Declaration fulfilled its promise? Where to now? That's for us all to discuss at this conference. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Rachel Stolce.
Greetings, everyone. Patrick, do you have my slides?
I do, and I am getting them up right now.
Okay, just want to make sure. In the meantime, I'm so sorry I'm not with y'all in beautiful Hawaii. Patrick was sharing how lovely it is there right now.
And you are ready
Okay.
to go.
You good?
Yes.
Okay. As Patrick said, I am here at the Library of Congress as the chief of the National Audiovisual Conservation Center, but I am going to focus on the last 15 or so years of the efforts that really speak to the three clauses. Thank you, Ray, for having those beautifully outlined that were in the Singapore Declaration on behalf of a lot of the work that I've done in the last decade and a half within CF, EMEA, and CCAAA. So next slide, please. So this is my version of your three clauses. I was really excited to see these three clauses. And I think a lot of what I will be speaking to for FIAS, CCAAA, and EMEA speaks to all three of these. So I love that you all, and probably this was you, Ray, stated very clearly the need for CCAAA and for us to work together to make sure around the world that we are supporting all archives everywhere, and training and outreach and education, which is one of my favorite topics ever. Next slide, please. And if you could hit it once. So I will be speaking in this order about FIAF, the International Federation of Film Archives, and then click again, please. And the Coordinating Council of Audiovisual Archives and the work that we've done at least since I was involved in 2015. And then one more time, please. And the Association of Moving Image Archivists, and especially the Pathways program that has been just a spectacular success that I'm really proud of. And next, please. So to start off with, FIAF, I joined the executive committee a while ago, and for about a decade was super involved. This was actually in Bangkok when we were able to present the FIAF award to the most fantastic and gentle and thoughtful filmmaker ever, Apichapong, and I will say his last name incorrectly, so I'll just leave it with Apichapong. But for FIAF, while I was on the executive committee, I started noticing just we were tracking the number of requests that were coming in all the time. So whether that was, we have a whole closet of films we don't know what to do with, how do you digitize things, to my country's at war and a dictator is threatening the collections, right? So over and over and over again. So in my first few years, we set up a, next slide, please. We set up a training and outreach program. So we funded it. We hired a part-time person to overtake it, David Walsh, who was the fantastic head of digital collections at the Imperial War Museum. And this really allowed us to respond to every single email that came in. And then we decided, if we could have next slide, please. We did create an assistance request form in all three FIAF languages, Spanish, English, and French. And I tell you what, people just kept writing in over and over again. And I think probably all of us together could band together and make a whole team of people to go and meet some of these requests. But they included things like, next slide, please. So everything, and this is David Walsh responding to a request to come and deal with films. I think I might have messed up my country, so I'm not going to say exactly where this is, because he had 3 in a row that looked very, very similar to this. So everything that was sort of heartbreaking, entire cultural heritage of a country, right, that had just been neglected for various political, economic reasons. To next slide, please. We also did a lot of workshops. So this one, again, I'm making a lot of my very and Thailand focused. So our lovely colleagues at the Thai Film Archive had us come for, I think, about 10 days. And we did a 1-week training for people from, I think, 7 different countries and surrounding areas. So we started to be able to produce sort of on-site, meet your need training events. Next slide, please. So this included everything from the film handling you saw to sort of general big workshops, so retrochromers, sort of bigger picture thinking, and sort of digital preservation or codecs and wrappers. And we were able to meet a lot of those particular needs. That was such a fun trip too. Next slide, please. So the program is still ongoing. David Walsh stepped down last year, and we're still doing a lot. We, FIAF, are still doing a lot of online training, and I will speak to one that I helped develop that's still ongoing, but that is still happening. And I will flip over, next slide, please, to CCAAA. And I'm so excited I see Dietrich Schuler's in the audience too. I got involved in CCAAA as the FIAF representative in 2015. And as Ray spoke about, a number of the things that we were able to do and talk about involved sort of collaborative efforts or trying to figure out policy. And I know there are people on this call probably who've been involved longer, but for the last 11 years that I was representing FIAF and then EMEA and now IFLA, we came up with the World Day for Audiovisual Heritage, the slogan, the pictures, the posters, and we tried to get all of our 8 organizations to participate. We also, no small feat, the two big JTSs I was involved in, Joint Technical Symposium. Turns out it's one of my favorites because I feel like I went back and read all the old publications, and it's always like, what's the next thing on the horizon? That's the coolest next thing in our field. I know at the 2016 one, I'm still curious what happened to this one. People were talking about recording to glass. And I feel like every JTS, I'd like to follow what that happened, what that path was. So the JTSs I was involved with, next slide, please, were the 2016 and oops, it's not this one. Sorry, I got my slides out of order. Okay, this is for Ray. This is the CCAAA first meeting ever minutes. And I just broke out that IASA was involved, FIAF was involved. And apparently, Fiat IFTA was not wanting to be involved in the early days. I would like curious how people came and went over time. But obviously, the point of this is this happened just months before. Is that correct, Ray? Before the Singapore Declaration was the first CCAAA meeting. And from that, many good things have come, including JTF. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, so JTS, by the way, FIAF, Christophe Dupin, has found every single proceeding that he could ever find and has digitized some and put them online on the CCAAA website. If anybody's interested, I do think it's a fascinating history of our field over and over and over again. One of my favorites. But something that I'm excited is going to happen in Canberra, where we can all go and say hello to Ray in 2027. Next slide, please. Yeah, so 2016, I was fortunate enough to work on the publication. We did a full book through Indiana University Press. And then in 2019, we packed on with IASA in Hilversum. I was wearing my FIAF hat. We worked with EMEA and Netherlands Sound and Vision, or really just Erwin Verbruggen, who's so awesome. So can't wait for the next one. But that really is I think JTS is a really good example of what CCAAA was meant to be in my current view, looking back on the history of working together and everybody in our field trying to figure out the next steps to the best standards. So excited it's coming up next. Next slide, please. So through CCAAA, I always took a group picture. I love a group picture always. So at various points, we were 7 to 8 organizations. We met pre-pandemic. We would meet frequently at the UNESCO building in Paris or once in Hilversum. And one thing I kept noticing, so we would go around the table, we all start talking about our own things. And one thing I noticed is, I think when a lot of our organizations started, we were film, or we were sound, or we were video and television, but we were all talking about the same things, right? We're all starting to normalize many of the things that we're doing. And especially in training and outreach. So next slide, please. So for 3 years, one thing that I did, because we already had our CCAAA people there, but I invited other organizations who were doing training and outreach to come in so that we could start to collaborate and communicate. I think we'd had a couple of overlapping trainings in Ghana, for example. I think we went, and then NYU's Apex went the same year. So we brought in NYU, we brought in ENA, they were doing a bunch of training, Retro Cromer as himself, as Soima, Soima, I'm leaving off the rest of it. They were doing some trainings elsewhere. Soima Ikram. So next slide. So for a couple of years in a row, we kept meeting the day after a CCAAA meeting, and I think this turned into these sort of effective partnerships that continued to grow. Again, those were CCAAA presidents and anybody in the organizations doing training and outreach in the audiovisual archiving field, which was a big part of your Singapore declarations. Next slide, please. I think that was our smallest and last group there, and next slide. So what I decided for us to do within FIAF was take all of these like notes. So we've been taking notes in all these meetings about how we collaborate, what is needed in the field. And for FIAF, we created an alternate FIAF summer school. So we always had one that has been mainly held in Bologna, Italy, that's very film focused. We created one that was 2 weeks long and sort of included all of our fields, sound and television and film and copyright, cataloging, all the things. And we held it at IU Bloomington at the time. It was great. I was there, but we had also a mass digitization project going on, and we had compiled all of these knowledge in the field in one spot. Next slide, please. So this is the alternate FIAF summer school that's happening every other year. We accepted 50 professionals in the field who were interested in expanding, so they might have already had some components of it. We held them there for 2 weeks. We put them in student dorms and we kept them really busy. Next slide, please. And what was good about it is we did so much hands-on. So anybody who's ever able to do a training for disaster planning with Kara Van Malsen, who is the best human in the world, it is the most interesting, fun disaster training, but it has a narrative and it's real life, and she makes them more complex and surprises along the way. So we did a lot of hands-on. Next slide, please. And every morning we started with lectures. So whether that's we can't digitize everything in the world to copyright and moral rights to digital preservation, we started with mornings of lectures. And next slide, please. Afternoons were hands-on, hands-on, hands-on. And there's our Library of Congress's very own Dave Lewis. This was a couple of years ago. And next slide. And not to make sure that though it's FIAF, we included everything. So did lots with video and taking apart decks, because as we all know, this knowledge is fleeting. Fewer and fewer people know how to even deal with decks, video decks. The next slide. And we included projection and presentation. Next slide. So included our cinema and sort of how one even programs and makes things available. So from beginning to end, how things are made, to how to preserve it, how to digitize it, how to present it to the public. And next slide. And of course, long-term preservation on the left are our vaults that were 38 feet in the air, and then our brand new vaults that are even colder, our vaults, meaning at Indiana University. So every part of sort of preservation and access of audiovisual material. And next slide. And BAVAS continued. So we had that in the summer of 2019, and it was so great. And we were going to have it every 2 years around the world. And y'all know what happened in February of 2020. The world shut down. So our first every 2 years was a BAVAS in 2021 online. And then next slide, please. The next one was done in 2023 in India. I understood we could not get a host this year, but I think I heard Sanchai is in the room with you all today, and I think they might be interested in hosting one, and I've offered to help. So hopefully I'll just lock that in publicly that we'll do this in 2027 in Thailand. We'll have to talk clearly. Next slide, please. And then the last one I wanted to mention was the Association of Moving Image Archivists. I know many of you all, many of our organizations overlap in our membership. The work that we've done in the last few years, and I was in my presidency in the last 3.5 years, I'm really, really proud of what we developed. And again, some of this comes from sort of accumulating what the needs of the world are as a really unique program. Next slide, please. So we called it Pathways, and it was really meant to find sort of the underrepresented communities. We do have established programs, as Ray said, in the field, but some of them are really expensive. And then also, Ray, thank you for noting that we also are not getting rich in our field ever. So if you have an expensive program and you're not going to be paid well, we got to find some middle ground there. So I think we're now in our 5th year. And it's allowed like 10 to 12 individuals to do online training for a whole summer a paid internship, a mentorship program that is not just mixing and matching people, but the mentors are also have a mentor. So it's actually a designed program so that you're actually being the most effective you can be. So it's a multi-tiered thing with curriculum based on many of the things in our field already. It is still ongoing. We thought we lost our funding this year with some of the things happening in the world, but we have successfully kept it afloat. So next slide, please. Just to note, this started as a really great collaboration with the National Film Preservation Board here in the United States that is run here at the Library of Congress through the National Audiovisual Conservation Center. It started as a funded pilot program in 2020. And then AMIA was able, because of this pilot program, to gather more funding through the IMLS program, and it's continuing to this day, which I'm really thrilled about. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we're also launching our own mentorship program based on what we've done with Pathways to really just help support and continue that ongoing education in our field. Next slide. If anybody's interested in either, if you're already an AMIA member and you want to be a mentor, let me know. Or if you know anybody who would like to be part of this, also let me know. And next slide. So again, click, 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 if you could just click it 3 times. So those are the 3 that I wanted to really respond to your Singapore clauses that hit sort of everything I've done in the last decade and a half with these organizations. And next slide. Trying to keep this going. I did want to say to all my nice SIPAVA friends and colleagues, I wish I was there with you all. And Ray, this is like the most fun honoring people who've made anything happen in our field ever. This is SIPAVA in Bangkok. What fun that was. So missing y'all, I'm sorry I'm not there. And then the last slide is just to say, we should all just keep talking. Ray, this photo always cracks me up. This was at AMIA in Pittsburgh. So that was like 2015 or 16, talking very seriously about some very serious issues, I think. All that is to say, let's keep talking, even though we might be on the other side of the world from each other. Sometimes we're trapped in a funicular going up the hillside. So let's keep talking. So that's the end of my slideshow.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to move on next to Karen's presentation. Karen can't be with us today, but she did record a presentation for us. Let me just get that going.
A very good morning to everyone in Hawaii. My name is Karen Chan, and I'm the Executive Director of the Asian Film Archive based here in Singapore. I'm sorry that I'm unable to join you in person, but I'm really grateful for this opportunity to be able to share a little bit about the work of SIPAVA and CCAAA. I'm the current president of SIPAVA and the current chair of CCAAA. I've entitled this short sharing as Advocating Collaboratively an Imperative Future. And I think this is the future that we have to move forward in order to be able to do our work. And what do I mean by that? I'll start off with talking a little bit about SIPAVA's work and introducing SIPAVA. It stands for Southeast Asia Pacific Audiovisual Archives Association. And this association was formed in 1996 and will be celebrating its 30th anniversary in 2026. I was a young archivist when we had the first IASA SIPAVA conference in 2000 held in Singapore. So I have very fond memories of that event. And I think it was a formative event that shaped my view of associations of this, networking associations of this nature. This particular, I think SIPAVA represents obviously individuals and organizations who are interested and are doing work in audiovisual archiving in Southeast Asia and in recent years, wider Asia and the Pacific. And we have members who come from archives, libraries, museums, broadcasting institutions, universities, even vendors, media, and heritage professionals from 24 different countries. Some of SIPAVA's activities include annual conferences, training, workshops, community archiving sessions, talks, and engagement events, and also book publications. So we come now to CCAAA, which stands for the Coordinating Council of Audiovisual Archives Associations. This was formally constituted in 2000, and it encourages and facilitates the cooperation and coordination of organizations tasked with preserving the world's audiovisual heritage. We currently have 8 members that are based in various continents that represent different professions encompassing film, audio, broadcast, archives, libraries, universities, heritage institutions, that all carry audiovisual collections. And you probably would be familiar with all of these acronyms of the various associations from AMIR, ASK, FIAF, FIT, IFTA, and of course IASA, ICA, IFLA, and CIPAV. Some CCAAA activities include organizing and promoting the UNESCO World Day for Audiovisual Heritage, celebrated every 27th of October. This year is a special year because it's the 20th anniversary of the World Day. So do look out for the promotions that will be coming up for the event. CCAAA also organizes the Joint Technical Symposium, or JTS, with a host of hosts. And this event essentially delves with the specialized developments within the AV, cinema, and sound archiving industry. I believe many of you have also contributed papers or attended a JTS sometime along the way. And of course, we do support members' activities through cross-promotion and marketing. Okay, so we come to this, I guess, the pivotal part of my sharing, which is the power of networks and why, I think collaborating in one way or another enables us to do our work more effectively. And this largely is because it facilitates connections between members and non-members, bringing together people from across continents and across countries and across borders. Enabling collaborations will bring about hardware, software, and humans together. And what do I mean by this? There are concrete examples of how we have worked together with different associations and members who then bring equipment or different kinds of expertise to members who maybe are lacking some resources, perhaps need some help. And this has really facilitated the archiving work of many of our members over the years. And of course, it provides, we enable these kinds of collaborations, enable practical assistance and support, expertise, training, even funding to some extent. So I can't imagine what we would be able or not be able to do if we didn't have all of these networks together. And I'm sure there would be many other examples that the other speakers on this panel will be able to share and be able to illustrate. So while I'm unable to be able to answer some of these questions that if you have any about SIPAVA and CCAAA, my colleagues who are there in Hawaii, Sanchai and Joshua Harris may be able to pick up some of these questions and provide you with answers to them. But you can, definitely still find some answers on our websites or with any of the panel, the speakers on this panel. I just wanted to do a quick plug for some upcoming events of CCAAA and SIPAVA. And you can see here for 2026, 3rd to 4th of March, JTS 2026 is being held in Canberra, hosted by the National Film and Sound Archive of Australia. And SIPAVA's conference would be on between the 8th to the 15th of June, hosted by the National Archives of Malaysia. So I hope that we will be able to see each other soon at any of these upcoming events. And until then, thank you very much for this opportunity again. Have a great session ahead.
Next up, we have Trey. I'm just going to get your
Testing,
slideshow
testing.
going.
Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. Aloha. All right, that's the spirit, right? First of all, mahalo to everyone who has made it here and everyone who's put an immense amount of work on the ground here. This has been fantastic so far already, and we've still got a lot to come after this. I'm going to keep it a little shorter because I'd like to get to the conversation parts of things. Of course, I'm going third after some people who have outlined some big things that have happened already. So I'm just going to sort of do some highlights, I think, for representing IASA here at this stage. You can hit the slide, please. So I thought it would be smart to give longstanding members, potential new members, sort of an idea of the timeline context for the conversation we're kind of having. So as you can see, IASA was established in 1969 in Amsterdam as a function as a medium for international cooperation between archives that preserve recorded sound and audiovisual documents. The first journal was published in 1971. The adoption of a constitution was ratified in 1974. And this is before I was born, so it's pretty impressive. And I'm not young anymore. In 1978, first special publication from IASA as an archive approach to oral history, which was a big milestone. And then previous to 1988, IASA often represented the archival interests of different organizations that it did partner with, such as in partnership with IAML, the International Association of Music Libraries. It also partnered with ARSC, the Canadian Association of Music Libraries, Fiat, Siapava, and Bach. So there's a lot of things that have happened over the years, and then IASA sort of branched out on its own, holding its first solo conference in 1988. And then, let's see here, one important thing. One thing to highlight, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, is in 2005, the first publication from IASA's technical committee was released, which was TCO3, the Safeguarding of Audiovisual Heritage, Ethics, Principles, and Preservation Strategy. And well, no, I didn't update the bottom line should be 2026. We're here at the 56th annual conference here at the University of Hawaii. Slide, please. So I'm not going to take any more time going over the resolutions that came out of the Singapore Joint Conference, because Ray already did a great job, and then Rachel already touched on some other important parts about that. So I'll skip to the next slide. So the last 25 years has given us a tremendous amount of growth and change in audiovisual archives and organizations that steward audiovisual materials. I took this plenary as an opportunity to reach out to my mentors in IASA for their thoughts on the last 25 years, including Dietrich Schuler, Ilse Osman, Richard Ramft, Toby C., Pio Pellizzari, Will Prentice, Judith Gray, happens to be in the audience. And I've been a member since 2014, so 11 years does seem like a long time, but as I look back a lot further than that, there's a lot more that happened before I showed up. So as we reflect on milestones and initiatives in our field over the last 2+ decades, one achievement stands out above all, and this has already started to be talked about, which is directly related to the resolution, is the professionalization of audiovisual archiving. So in the early days, our work was often carried out by dedicated individuals, people interested in this work, passionate about this work, and specialists from related fields. Like I come from Cornell, where there was a lot of early work done at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, which essentially a lot of the archivists working in the studio, even when I started at Cornell, were bird people, not audio people. So they taught themselves how to do a lot of this work in order to archive and make accessible what is essentially a large collection, actually the largest collection of naturally occurring sound on the globe, that is available for researchers. Let's see here. And through specialist publications, training programs, conferences, and regional branches, IASA helped to create internationally recognized consensus on what good AV archiving looks like. So how many people in the room are familiar with TC publications? How many of them have relied on them over time? It's a pretty impressive thing. Oh, I should have raised my hand. So several concrete achievements that highlight this progress since the Singapore resolutions. First, the publications issued, as I mentioned, by the IASA Technical Committee have become essential references around the world. These have been widely used and adopted and translated into multiple languages, including Chinese and recently Arabic, which has extended their global reach. The specialized training programs. Did I skip a slide? Oh, no, I didn't. Slide, please. The establishment of practical training programs has ensured archives and expertise is no longer just theoretical, but more in practice and lived across institutions. At the latest IASA Preservation Training Program, a big shout out to the Training and Education Committee, was hosted by the South African Broadcast Corporation, I think that's right, SABC in Stellenbosch, which was a fantastic opportunity to collaborate with institutions there. And then IASA, the journal, I think this is an important thing to mention. The IASA journal has evolved into an open access, double-blind, peer-reviewed publication, raising the level of scholarly and professional exchange in our community. Very important. And then fourth, the recognition of members' contributions through a number of awards has helped and strengthen our community and celebrates the diversity of expertise, also putting the resources back into the hands of the people who can use them the most. Slide, please. There are also a couple of specific things to highlight. The Magnetic Tape Alert Project is one of them, thanks to enthusiasm and gasoline in the tank from Dietrich Schuler, a legend in our field for sure. And even in its first and incomplete round, this project identified over 8 million audio and video recordings held outside proper archival safeguarding institutions. So this is, they may not have the proper infrastructure support, and I really like what Karen said, the software, the hardware, and the humans to steward this material. The final report was published in 2020 and is available openly on the IASA website, both as a report and then the data set is openly available as well. And we've been proposing, and if anybody has any interest, I would love to talk more about this. The previous IASA board had proposed a potential second initiative based sort of building on the information that we've got in the Magnetic Tape Alert Project data set and report. That was a research project that happened over a few years, and so the research output helped basically create sort of an unfortunate picture of the scale of the peoples, places, and cultures represented in audiovisual media, and that's a big reason why we're all here to talk about this. Slide, please. And then, you know, to sort of summarize really fast, to take these achievements, professionalization, publications, training, open access, recognition, and urgent preservation initiatives sort of demonstrate IASA's role in shaping international practice, and I think we all take a lot of pride in that. So it also reminds us that our work is far from finished. In the past decades, building out standards and community, the coming ones must be sure to focus on collections, especially the most vulnerable, and the people's history and representation that carry forward into the future. Good example of what I was just mentioning about awards. Here pictured in the slide are 3 recent award winners and the IASA community members. Ezekiel Corley was the 2023 recipient of the Carl Fleischauer Award. Joshua Ng is the 2024 recipient of the Lars Gustad Award, and Jaisu Ling was the 2024 recipient of the Carl Fleischauer Award following that. So when I get asked about why I care about IASA, there's a couple of big things. It's like if I can play some sort of a small role in the bigger picture and the effort that we're undertaking here and why we care about this, I think I will have done my job to document a shared objective reality we all hold and be able to learn from and tell stories in the future. And another reason is to be able to connect with you all and these people and watch them excel. So I'll leave it there. So thanks to IAPAVA and the people on this panel. It's been a really lovely experience making this happen. And now we've gotten the plane off the ground, so everybody enjoy the ride.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yuri Shimoda. As president of the Association for Recorded Sound Collections, it is an honor and privilege to be here on this panel. with CCAAA colleagues that I really respect and hold dear. And I'm very excited to talk to you about some of ARSC's programs and initiatives that highlight the areas mentioned in the Singapore Declaration. I think that the first pillar of collaborative problem solving is really woven into everything all of us do as associations, whether it's working within a board of directors or members of different committees working together as a team, or reaching out to other leaders of associations to really accomplish a goal. And I am especially proud of a current ARS program that illustrates these different types of collaborations. A couple years ago, David Lewis, who was already in a photo, I think that Rachel shared, from the Society for Ethnomusicology's Archiving Special Interest Group, reached out to Dan Hochstein, Aaron Biddle, and myself as co-chairs of the ARSC Education and Training Committee. Dave was really concerned about the impact of recent administrative decisions on ethnomusicology archives across the United States. And together we decided to produce a workshop and 2 webinars around the topics of archival advocacy and sustainability to share strategies and resources, not just with other media archivists, but stewards of all types of collections. Oh, you can go back. The series, which was funded by a grant from the National Recording Preservation Board and administered by the National Film Preservation Foundation, was launched with a hybrid day-long workshop hosted by ARSC's student chapter at UCLA. A few months later, we continued the conversation with 2 webinars. The first really providing tactics on how to work with administration, featuring members from ARSC, the Music Library Association, and IASA's own Trey Burney. And the second was on funding and rights considerations, led by members of ARSC Copyright and Fair Use Committee and the National Recording Preservation Foundation. So the second area of adequate and equitable representation within archival collections really highlights one of ARSC's biggest strengths. We are about bringing together everyone and anyone with an interest in recorded sound, whether it's the study of it, the preservation of it, whether they're from the Library of Congress, a small town historical society, a private collection, or a community-based archive. An annual event sponsored by ARSC spotlights materials that are typically not in archival collections, and these are home recordings. Basement Tapes Day provides the public with access to their recorded memories on audio carriers, whether they're cassettes or open reel tapes. This event really peels back the curtain so that preservation and transfer work typically done behind library and archives doors is front and center. And it really gives us the opportunity as archivists to get to interact with the creators or the owners of these materials. And we always try to hold the day around World Day for Audiovisual Heritage. There's also increasing diversity of collections represented in ARSC's conference programs and our membership. Next slide. We are currently working towards a strategic plan for the association, and the first step is to really answer, who are we right now? So we've teamed up with an outside data consultant to design and implement a membership satisfaction survey of all ARSC members, whether they're current or recently lapsed. And in addition, this week, the consultant is actually starting to conduct several individual and small group interviews to dive deeper into how we can be more inclusive of and better cater to all of our members. So this clause of the Declaration also touches on the development of audiovisual archiving skills and infrastructure around the world, which really leads us to the final pillar, which is formal professional training, a topic that is very, very close to my heart as co-chair of the Education and Training Committee for the past 6 years. During this time, we've continued to work with the technical committee to create annual conference workshops around magnetic tape, archival appraisal, and this past year on how to design and build an audio preservation space. We have established a continuing education webinar series that consistently attracts attendees from beyond ARSC membership. Supporting and developing programs for students and emerging professionals and collectors is always a top priority. One initiative that has formal training at its very core is Sound Foundations, ARSC's Preservation Residency Program. This program has 3 objectives: enabling those who are newer to the field of audio archiving and preservation to obtain hands-on, practical experience in established archives and preservation sites with compensation and benefits for a 2-year period. 2, and really the motivation for creating this program was ensuring that valuable technical knowledge and expertise continues to be passed on to the next generation. And the third goal is to really support the host site by providing a large percentage of each resident's salary and really supporting them to support the residents' continued professional growth and development. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about these programs and initiatives. I'll be around the entire conference if you have any questions or want to contribute in some way. I'm looking forward to our discussion and the rest of the conference ahead. Thank you.
So I just wanted to give everyone a time check. It's coming up on the 11:30 presentations. There's nothing following us in this room, so Josh, I know you got to run. But let's continue this conversation. I think we can hang out here for those who were not going to attend those talks. We can have a little bit of Q&A here if we want to, but I don't want to take away from the schedule that was set up. So we're here to talk, but I also want to make sure that those who want to make to those talks can.
Before we break, I do want to add a special thank you to Andrew Martin. The archaeology of finding the Singapore Declaration and actually bringing this to the forefront is due to him. There was not much knowledge of this existing before about a year ago, or maybe even less. And I would like to stress that we should vow to continue the work of the Declaration, perhaps refresh it, and make it something that is on all of our websites, known to everybody, and put out there as our advocacy. I think it's really important that we do this again as a group of CCAAA institutions. So thank you, Andrew, and thank you, everybody. This is fantastic.
Thank you. Could I ask those on Zoom to come on camera? So, as I said, we wanted to make sure that those who could make it to the other presentations could. But I had a couple of questions, and I wanted to see if the audience had some questions about what we can do. And I wanted to kick us off here with something that everyone sort of talked about, which is we've seen across the world the increased legitimacy of time-based media as historical record and the study of that, and the emergence of formal certificate or degree or otherwise programs in the field. We've also talked a lot about the informal or the collaboration that we've done either with EMEA's Pathways or with the ARSC Sound Foundations. What are your opinions on the current state of the growing formalization of professionalization of audio archives, and what challenges do you see that through collaboration we can meet better or can set up a standard that we can achieve?
I think, well, with audio, I can definitely see both sides of you know, having gone through formal professional training myself. I see the benefit that these programs give in terms of establishing a firm foundation in all archival principles, whether you're working with photographs, media, or 3D objects even. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. The ability to, you know, maybe be in media right now, but when I want to semi-retire and go work at a public library, my foundation will give me the ability to do that. However, having many friends and colleagues who are currently working in a studio, mixing musicians' albums. They're out there on the road touring with musicians, providing you know, their abilities and talents every night, and really introducing them to the path that a career in preservation could bring in terms of stability, a 9-to-5 job with benefits. I see both sides, and I know that at ARSC, we try to support both of those communities, whether you're coming at preservation from NYU MEAP, or you're coming to it from years and years of transferring 78s in your own basement. We want to provide you with more tools in your tool belt to go out and accomplish whatever it is you want to do. And Sound Foundations is kind of concrete proof of that.
I would sort of add to that in that I sort of represented sort of an alternate path, right, into this work. I refer to it as James Neal, famous librarian archivist, talked about that, the concept of the raised by wolves librarian, which is something I think he got some criticism about that article, but I rang very true to me. So I always say that I came to libraries and archives through the side door, and then over time built credentials around that experience. But I had a background in audio engineering and audio mastering, working in broadcast television for several years as a documentary filmmaker too. So I was telling somebody yesterday, if I can look back on it, and it all the narrative sort of makes sense. If you were to tell me that 10 years ago, I would have not known. I couldn't have imagined it really. But.
Yes, I don't know. I am allowed to talk because I don't have the flower. So I just want to highlight the importance of collaboration, and now the CIPAWA that try to do a big project in my idea that to try to help Myanmar. Because we have the group in Myanmar called Save Myanmar Film. They are very active to do the preservation of the film. But because of the situation in Myanmar, it's a bit like, as you may be aware of the political crisis and things like that. So the CIPAWA got support by UNESCO and collaborate with the Myanmar, Save Myanmar Film to digitize their collection. So this is something that is still important, the collaboration between the archive, because we still have less resources archive or less resources people that they need some help, and how we gonna help them, how we gonna reach out to them is so important. And this is the project that I hope that it's gonna be like a model for the other group as well, that how we gonna help the author. I mean, it's just very hard work to do that, because you have to negotiate with UNESCO as well, because UNESCO cannot support the Myanmar government right now of the policy thing. So that's why CIPOA come between. So this kind of thing that become quite a big issue. But again, this is something that we can work on, and it's a challenge as we have to overcome as well.
Thank you. Rachel, Ray, would you like to add to that conversation?
I guess what I would add is the importance of formal courses with a formal qualification. That's part of a profession, something that validates a profession, and it's important to in the Australian situation, for example, where people now feel are mostly employed by governments, federal or state governments. To have a formal qualification is something that governments look for. It helps them to organise the way they see things, and to set pay scales and the status of the work. So while we can have very skilled people without any formal qualification to show, for governments and employers, these things become quite important reference points.
I would say I'm a big fan of more and more collaborations and more online trainings and more working together. I love some of the formal training programs we have, but I've also heard some feedback of the cost can be sort of debilitating for running through those programs at some time. So I'm a big fan of the collaboration. I love Sanchai talking about the Save Myanmar films. I think I met those gentlemen when we were in at the archive a long time ago. So any ways that we could help, but I would also love it if we could just get $10 billion that we all work together to train and support, and especially support the archive. So love that we're talking again, though. It's hard. The CCAAA group can be hard because everybody has 1 and 2 and 3 jobs, and trying to pull all of this together can be hard. So let's bring us all together more.
I think it's important, as Rachel was just mentioning, that the talking and the communication between the sibling organizations, CCAAA, helped us over time develop more of a common language about how we were approaching this, and then the challenges, and how we characterize those challenges, and then the solutions to challenges.
I think one of the things, I'm not a panelist, but I'm going to chime in and give you my opinion. I'm the president of IASA. I get to do that. I think one of the things that I might struggle with this, but I think it's showing how robust the field is getting and how mature the organizations are getting, is that we've started to push into areas that are beyond what we started with, right? So we're starting to develop more and more standards and practices and workflows around things like digital preservation, or we're revising our TCs, or we're talking about disaster recovery. And I think as I look at all of the resources that are out there, I think that those are the types of things that call for the next round of collaboration. We've seen the maturity of the training programs. We've seen the maturity of the publications and how we can disseminate our knowledge. And now it is, how do we take the knowledge that we've put out there, bring it back together, and help feed what FIOF is doing with disaster recovery and EMEA, and what IASA is doing. So I think that that's what I would like to see, is what are the next areas where we push into, so that in 25 years and 50 years, when we're talking about these important notions of collaboration, what are the successes that we are celebrating?
I think something that's talked about, I've had several conversations with Rachel over the years, and you, Patrick, and others. Trying to figure out ways to really focus our energy in the right places, because I feel like all of the organizations involved have really more mature training programs and training initiatives and resources available to folks. And regardless of any sort of duplication of effort across the groups, all hands make better work, and that those should flow from those organizations that have their specialized space. But maybe there are other places where we could reduce duplicative work through putting our resources together, maybe pooling resources.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's right. Any questions from the audience or any comments from the audience? Oh, you have a question online? Okay. So the question is, recognizing that 25 years ago it was IASA and SIPAVA that had their declaration, what are the next steps for us creating a CCAAA declaration with all of us as co-signers?
I bet Rachel has some thoughts on that.
I love that thought. I think, and I think Karen, as the current chair, would also be interested. But I would also state that I would love to see an action following that. Like I love declarations and I love reading this 25 years later, but I also would love to see if we could maybe get some funding to support some action following that. Also, I want to see what your lanyards are. One of y'all needs to hold that up with your conference tag on it. I kept getting glimpses and I would love to see what you're actually wearing.
Should mail you one. I guess, Patrick, you can take one back.
Let's see if my camera, can you see me? I don't know. Am I showing up here? Where's my video? It's really pretty. I'll take a picture and send it to you on Teams, Rachel.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Y'all look really festive and decorative and like you're having way more fun than some of us in offices might be.
Well, thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Ray, Trey, Yuri, Senchai, and Karen in Singapore. Andy, I think we set out to do something that we wanted to do, and we did it. So I'm very happy with that. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for engaging in the conversation. Conversations don't end; they just continue. So let's continue throughout the week and throughout the year, and we'll see what we can do in the next 25. So thank you all.